Hello, I'm Tony, and today we are looking at Never Alone, a puzzle platformer free from the Epic Games Store until the 27th of April 2023. It's based on a traditional Inupiaq tale, and unusually for a game, has a whole series of mini documentaries about the Inupiaq people that you can unlock for some context about various elements of the things you see in the game. We're introduced to the main story via a scrimshaw-style cutscene that sets out the basic storyline of the game and what we are trying to achieve, as per the traditional tale. When I got into the game itself, I was impressed with the graphics. They're a mix of realistic-looking backgrounds with well-animated characters that aren't cartoon-like, but clearly they're not going for perfect realism. It's a mix that works, bringing the bleak but beautiful Alaskan landscape to life in all its monochromatic, snow-covered beauty. The first thing you notice about the sound is the voiceover. It's in what I assume is the Inupiaq language, though I don't think it was specifically mentioned, with subtitles that are available in a whole host of languages. I don't mind reading subtitles, and it feels appropriate to me for the tale to be told in its traditional form. But for those that don't want to read, I couldn't see a way to have a voiceover in a different language. I do want to make special note of the sound effects, particularly the sound your characters make if you make a mistake. The first time I heard the fox cry out as it died was pretty jolting. All the effects are spot on, from the sound of the wind to the sound of ice grinding against rock, and they all add to the feeling of being in this unforgiving environment. There often isn't any background music. I'm not sure if this was a deliberate choice or not, because when it does appear, it's a nice ethereal composition that unfortunately still gets overpowered by the sound effects. The game is a puzzle platformer where you take control of two characters, an Inupiaq girl and an Arctic fox, each with their own abilities that you will need to harness on your quest. Apart from both of them being able to jump extremely far and not suffer fall damage, the girl can climb ropes and later on in the game use a ranged weapon, and the fox can run up some walls and call for the aid of spirits, which helpfully appear when it's nearby. Much of the puzzle solving involves combining these abilities to overcome obstacles in the environment. This generally means figuring out a route forward, but there are a few, quote, boss fights that provide different challenges. In addition to the character's abilities, there's also the almost omnipresent wind, which can hinder or help you out. If you're faced with a gap too large to jump, waiting for the wind to blow in that direction will let you launch yourself entirely across the screen. On the other hand, jumping a normal gap just as the wind blows against you will halt your leap halfway through, which often means a fall to your doom and a restart. Fortunately, there is a very generous checkpoint system, so when you fail, it's very rare to lose any significant progress. I do want to come back to spirits a little more. The fox needs to be close to a spirit for it to become visible, and once visible, it will follow the fox's movement. You'll then need to switch to controlling the girl, have her climb aboard the spirit, then switch back to the fox to lead the spirit onwards. Care must be taken to remain nearby though. Move too far away from the spirit and it slowly disappears, leaving the girl hanging in the air like Wile E. Coyote for a second before gravity notices. There are plenty of chase sequences in the game where you have very little margin for error, to the point that a slight pause when restarting gets you caught immediately. These require timing and accurate controller use, so there's no pipe puzzles to solve or pattern matching in this game. It's a pure platformer, and you often have little time to think. Owls dot the landscape, initially being along the path you have to take, but later on in the game they're somewhat hidden off the beaten track, requiring some exploration to find. Each time you find one, you unlock a cultural insight, which are the mini documentaries I spoke about at the beginning. These are educational pieces about the Inupiat people that can be viewed in-game or from a menu option if you'd like to know more about their culture and how the elements of the game's story fit in. But you're not forced to if you'd rather not watch them. They are very professionally done and provide information around a particular topic related to what happened when you found the owl from the point of view of the Inupiat people. None of them are very long, and I really appreciate that they're there as an option to watch. The story takes us to a few different environments, including the inside of a whale, though there is necessarily a limited variety in the look and feel, with the game being set in a frozen landscape. This feels like a bit of an issue because it impacts the nature of the puzzles you have to solve. They do start to get a little repetitive, though by that point I was nearly finished with the game, as it only took me 2.5 hours. For the completionists out there, I was missing 2 owls, so if you want to 100% it, maybe add another half hour to that. I didn't find any of the puzzles especially hard to figure out. The only ones that kind of halted my progress were ones that you couldn't figure out before trying it. Standing on a very unstable tree, for example, with 3 platforms and multiple movable tree claws along the route, you couldn't work that out without dying first. There is a bit of an issue with the twin characters, specifically the behaviour of the one you're not currently controlling. Most of the time, the non-controlled character will run after you a little way behind and will climb or jump appropriately. Sometimes they decide not to bother, so you need to switch back to them, which is a bit of a time waste but ultimately not a big deal. Sometimes they decide to go a different direction entirely, which is a real issue when they're the fox and they go out of range of the spirit the girl is currently standing on. That's a lot more frustrating. Also frustrating were the controls, which sometimes felt like they just didn't respond at all, or they responded extremely slowly. I also encountered a few bugs, one that needed me to close the game down and restart it completely. Fortunately, I never saw a bug that persisted past the game start, but still, it's not the best gameplay experience. All these issues being said, I still enjoyed the game. It wasn't too difficult to work out the puzzles. Most of the difficulty here is in platforming, the actual execution. And the graphics and sound are really charming. It's a lovely game to look at. The story behind the action is strong, provided you read it all, though even if you don't read it, there are enough in-game story beats that do grab your attention. It's not a perfect game, but it is an entertaining puzzle platformer that won't take up too much of your time, and can teach you something too if you want it to. I recommend picking this up now while it's free if you like platforming games. I'm not sure about when it goes back to standard £12 though. Okay, I've done my duty to my village, so I'm off. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.